All right, guys, for those of you that aren't aware, a couple of weeks ago we did our first live Q&A, and we are all set to do another one tonight. So if you've got questions, post them in the comments down below, and we'll do our best to answer them. We've got 5 already submitted, and this is only about a 20-minute session, and so we might run out of time to answer all of them, but we hope that you'll for sure check in and try to join in on the conversation. If you've got questions about things that I'm explaining, let us know in the comments. That's why my beautiful wife is here. She is going to be helping out. This is Andrea, for those of you that don't know her. She's going to be helping out and relaying some of you guys' questions and everything back to me, so that way we can make sure we give you the best answer that we can in the time that we have. And so anyway, we don't have a ton of time, so I just want to jump right in and hope that you guys will enjoy this session. So first of all, we've got a question that was submitted on Facebook by Caitlin Blair. She says, how do you get a dog to stop lunging at cars and bicycles while on walks? So this is actually a pretty common problem that we deal with pretty frequently. Dogs that just get overstimulated. We especially see it in like herding breeds, like border collies, let's see, heelers, Australian shepherds. You know, they want to chase those moving objects. And so really, in its simplest form, basically it comes down to you got to give the dog a correction that's meaningful enough. So whatever that's going to be, whether that, if you're, whatever type of training collar you might be using. For some dogs, it's a super light correction. I mean, you could be just using a slip lead and you could say, you know, and that dog is pretty sensitive to that. We deal with dogs that are pretty sensitive on a pretty regular basis. So a little verbal reprimand and the dogs are like, oh, okay, man, I messed up. All right, I won't do that again. And one of the things we talked about in our last live Q&A was that it's important to make sure that you've also done a good job of teaching your dog through reward-based training and letting the dog know that what we expect them to do first, so that way they know why they're being corrected. So for example, if your dog isn't good at walking on the leash already, you need to start there in a pretty sterile environment and then move on to corrections. Now, I don't like to give just blanket statements as far as correction goes, because every dog is different. So you need to make sure that you're using a correction that's appropriate for your dog. And that's something that you could take care of by either doing a lesson with a trainer near you, or we can do Skype lessons with you. We can see your dog, we can meet your dog virtually, or of course if you're local to us, we can work with you here in person and help you determine what correction is appropriate for your dog, because all kinds of training tools out there are appropriate for all kinds of different dogs. I believe in prong collars, e-collars, all those things, but I believe in using them in the right circumstance. You don't just want to use them incorrectly, because just like when you're fixing your car, if you've got the wrong tools for the job, you're not going to be able to fix the car. Same thing with dogs. You have to have the right tool for the job and know how to properly use it. One of my good friends, Heather Beck, has a great phrase that she likes to say, it's the fool, not the tool. So don't blame training tools for training problems. Make sure that you know how to use it properly. So thanks for that question, Caitlin. I hope that helps you out. Start off with rewarding the dog for doing the right thing and in a sterile environment. Once they're walking appropriately, then you move on to a correction that's meaningful enough for the dog so that they'll stop chasing the cars and stuff. Next up, we've got a question from Steve and Christy. So Steve and Christy asked about what to do in the event that you're out in the backyard or something and the dogs are getting bit up by bugs. Can you use the same bug spray that we use on ourselves? And so there's some mixed opinions about that, and most vets are going to say no, you don't want to use off or things that have a lot of DEET or permethrin in them. And the reason for that is because those things are fine topically, but what do most dogs do when they get bored? They lick themselves. They'll lick their paws, their legs, their stomachs, you know, they lick all over themselves, right? And that becomes a problem when those things are ingested. And DEET has been shown to have some neurological problems when it's ingested internally, so you definitely don't want to use anything like that. So one of the things that my vet recommended several years ago, which I should probably do some more looking into, I'm just going off of a trusted vet's advice, but he recommended Avon's Skin So Soft. It's a really light oil that a lot of people use on themselves, but it works great as a bug deterrent on dogs as well, and it's also supposedly not a big deal if dogs lick that. Another really common one is you're actually able to start finding some dog-specific bug sprays. I believe a company named Sawyer makes a lemon eucalyptus one. And again, same thing, where it's pretty effective, but not going to be super dangerous in the event that the dogs decide to lick it or ingest it in some way. Obviously, they can't do lots and lots of that, But supposedly, worst case scenario with either of those two products is that the dogs are going to end up with an upset stomach. And so the reason why this comes into play is, if you do a lot of hiking or camping with your dog or something, you might have your dog on heartworm preventative, which is going to prevent a mosquito from being able to transmit heartworms to them, but it's not going to prevent the bites. And I've had some dogs that ended up with really bad welts, lots and lots of them. One of our old dogs, Zane, used to get a lot of welts from mosquito bites. And so we want to prevent that because it's uncomfortable for him. It's itchy for him, just like it is for us. And so, yeah, definitely you want to try to find something that works. And like I said, the lemon eucalyptus oil and also Avon Skin So Soft are two products that from my just basic study, you of course always need to consult with the veterinarian and do some looking into it yourself. But from the looking into it I've done and the testing I've done on my dogs, those have been totally safe to use and they've been effective at keeping the mosquitoes off. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say.
Oh yeah, keep in mind that dogs do hate pretty much any strong smell, so you're going to need to be careful with whatever you're using on them because they might just absolutely despise it. It might be best to spray it on a towel and then wipe it on the dog after you've sprayed it on the towel. But again, great question, Stephen Christie. All right, let's see. Number 3, we've got a question from Carrie DeBoard, also on Facebook. What do I do about a dog that's becoming highly reactive to a TV, thunder, and even a person sneezing? How can this be addressed because it's causing the other resident dog to also start to become uneasy? So I'm going to assume that the dog, since they're getting reactive to like thunder and stuff as well, I'm going to assume that it's more of an anxiety thing, not just a like high adrenalized, like, ooh, cool, loud noise, I want to bark at it and compete with it. If the dog is just trying to compete with the loud noise and make lots of loud noises as well, in that event, we go back to just, you correct them. You find a meaningful correction and you correct the dog for doing that. However, if it's a situation where it's more nerve related, the dog is anxious or nervous about those loud noises and that's why they're being reactive, and that's the case most of the time with the dogs that we see and deal with, then you need to do some significant desensitizing. Now, that seems like kind of a broad answer, but you're in luck because we have a video that goes completely in depth about how to desensitize dogs to loud noises like fireworks, gunshots, balloons popping, people sneezing, all that kind of stuff. And Andrea will go in and put it in the comments for us so you guys can go in and watch that video. It's on our YouTube channel and it is a step-by-step process for how you can desensitize your dog to those things. And we use a 2-prong approach. We've got a special CD that we use that you can order on Amazon. And then we also use food, something that they love. We use their food to gradually desensitize them. Now, it's really important that you do it correctly because if you use food at the wrong time, you can actually be rewarding the dog and making the problem worse because the dog is getting rewarded for reacting nervously. So, make sure that you follow the steps in that video correctly so that your dog is going to get desensitized and not get reinforced for the wrong behavior. And again, this is something that we see very frequently, and we've had a lot of success with following the steps in that video. So, free video that you can get on YouTube. Andrea is connecting it to this video right now, so make sure that you check that out and so that you guys can follow along and fix those issues because they don't seem to fix themselves. If you've already noticed, Carrie, they tend to get worse, and so you need to make sure that you nip them in the bud while you can. The earlier you start working on those problems, the easier it's going to be for you because they are really serious. All right, Andrea just added it in the comments. So Carrie, go in the comments, click that video. I think the video is called How to Help Your Dog with Loud Noises. It's got a picture of me with a balloon animal as the title picture. So you guys can watch that and help that dog out so that they're not going to be afraid of those loud noises anymore. Good questions. All right, Wendy had a question. What are your thoughts on lick sores? Harley has had one now for a year. We've talked to the vet 3 times about it and tried multiple different things. At this point, I'm wondering if it's a food allergy or a side effect from heartworm medications as we switched right before she started doing this. Or could it be anxiety? So I guess I'll work my way backwards. Could it be anxiety? It absolutely could. Oftentimes, lick granulomas can become something that are like a nervous tick, and they just get stuck in the habit. Dogs are creatures of habit. And so you got to break that habit if it's an anxiety thing. You said that it started right after you switched heartworm medications. So if you've got something like that that you can try as like just a quick fix, just see if it works, I would definitely switch up heartworm medications. Just because if you can link it back to something like that, totally worth trying to see if that's what's going on. Because, yeah, if there's a common link, no harm in trying a different heartworm medication just to see. I will say that most of the time, I think, when you've got those types of issues, when it's allergy related, a lot of times you're probably going to see more than just one spot. If it's just one spot, there's a really good chance that's probably more anxiety related, and that means you got to break that habit. You got to start getting that dog into more mentally stimulating exercises. And sometimes to break that habit, you just have to make sure that that dog doesn't get the chance to lick that spot for several days in a row. And the easiest way to do that is an Elizabethan collar. It's not very fun for the dog, not very fun for the rest of the family. They're bumping stuff, knocking stuff over in the house. But you have to break the habit for enough days in a row that the dog just doesn't revert right back to it. If you only put the Elizabethan collar on for a day or two, you're probably not going to have the results that you want. That's like the cone of shame, people call it. That's what the Elizabethan collar is. It's that cone of shame that dogs normally get when they get neutered or have surgery or something. You can pick those up at PetSmart, Petco, order them online. I think Michaela ordered a 3-pack of them recently, and they were like $15 or $20 or something.
On Amazon or something?
Yeah, probably on Amazon. I can't remember exactly where Michaela got them, but I know she got like a 3-pack or something recently.
Would you use the e-collar, like with a trainer's help? But would you use
an electronic collar, not an Elizabethan collar? Yeah, so some folks have had success using an e-collar doing that. Again, it's one of those things though that even with an e-collar, you have to catch the dog consistently enough to correct them to where they're not going to just revert back to doing it right away. They have to feel like there's eyes in the back of your head. And so what you want to do is make sure that the dog just does not have the chance to lick at that for several days in a row to just break that cycle. The other part of that puzzle, that's just one part of the puzzle there. The other part of the puzzle is you need to be doing a lot of mentally stimulating exercises with the dog. We've got some blogs and videos about that as well, just something that's going to tire the dog out mentally. Long walks. I mean, long walks are the answer to lots and lots of problems. Long, structured walks, I should say. Just going for a long walk is just going to build your dog's endurance, but a long, structured walk is going to help your dog to be more mentally stable, which is going to prevent those types of things from happening. And yeah, just trying as much as possible to keep your dog's mind off of it. Give them something else to fixate on, like a Kong filled with peanut butter. Again, usually trying to fix those types of things when they're ingrained in a habit, it's a multiple prong approach. And so you got to take a few different steps. It's not usually just a one simple answer. I will say though, sometimes the Elizabethan collar though is the answer. You leave it on for a week and then the dog's just like, okay, I got over that. I was able to quit licking that spot for a week and I don't need to go back to it. So.
Okay. I have a live question.
Live question, all
from
right.
Deborah Rogers. My younger dog constantly demands attention when giving attention to our older dog. She barks and gets in between you and the older dog. How can I stop this? She huffs and puffs too. Very jealous. I think we give her attention and that we try to make things fair between them.
Okay, so Deborah Rogers, thanks so much for your question. And it's a good question. It's something that happens quite a bit. Oftentimes, this is something that happens. It's not supernatural for dogs to act jealous as we see jealousy. Dogs have a totally different range of emotions than us. And I'm not somebody who believes that dogs don't have emotions, but they have a different range of emotions. And our version of jealous is very different from their version of jealous. And so frequently, the reason why dogs start getting all huffy and puffy and getting in between us is because we've accidentally reinforced that. So we're petting one dog, the other dog kind of comes over and gets in between us. So we say, oh, you're so cute, you're getting jealous. And then we start petting and loving on that dog. So that dog says, oh, look at this. If I come over here and get in between them, I get loved on and stuff too. So then the dog starts expecting it more and more. So we've accidentally created that behavior in most dogs. I don't think I've ever seen that occur naturally. So for those of you that are watching that have two dogs, make sure that aren't already doing that, make sure that you don't accidentally create that behavior in your dog, because like I said, it's not a natural thing. Dogs are actually usually perfectly content to have each other on kind of different rungs on the ladder. They don't feel like they need everything perfectly even. Now, once your dog already has that issue, if they're doing that frequently, that is where the place command comes in real handy. The dog comes over and tries to get in between us, and we'll use the place command. Now, for those of you that haven't trained with us, don't know what the place command is. Essentially what the place command is where we send the dog to go to their bed and they have to stay there for a minute or two before we let them come back off. So what it does is it starts to build a little bit of impulse control. The dog has to go there and chill out before they're allowed to come over and get any more affection themselves. So the place command is just a great tool for redirecting the dog when they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. So if you need help on teaching the place command, that's something that we can do through a Skype or a FaceTime lesson. We do have some videos that go through it, but a lot of times it's helpful for people to really know start to finish. And it is a couple-week process to be able to get to that point. But basically what you need to do is you need to redirect your dog, and you need to make sure that you're doing absolutely nothing to reinforce that behavior. Like I said, a lot of people will just go from one dog and the other dog will come in and they'll maybe just push him away or shoo him away for just a second, and then they go right to him. So the dog's, again, being reinforced and saying, oh yeah, cool, if I do this behavior, I get the love and affection that I want. So you need to redirect the dog and make sure that you're not doing anything to reinforce that behavior that they're doing.
I would add to that even like verbal interaction sometimes is enough stimulation that's positively feeding that dog. So if you're like, hey, knock it off, but you're saying it in kind of like a high tone, or kind of, you're giving the dog verbal attention, and that instead of just kind of ignoring them or knocking them off, So I think that can still be some sort of reward. So be careful of the way that you're talking to the dog in that situation too.
Yeah, just like we talked about earlier, you got to make your corrections meaningful. And if you're just kind of, oh, quit it, Fluffy, that kind of thing, your dog's probably just eating that up like, look, it worked. I got the attention that I wanted. Think about your hands, too. Dogs don't use their hands to correct each other. And so that's not something that's very natural for them either. And we use our hands to give the dog treats and toys and stuff. So if you're just kind of shooing them away like that, they're probably like, ooh, look, I'm getting what I wanted. I'm getting that attention. So just like Andrea said, you got to make those corrections meaningful and be mindful even of the tone that you're using and all that kind of stuff, because if you're not, your dog's just going to feel like, okay, it's working. I'm getting the attention that I wanted. So, good deal. All right. Let's see. We've got Wendy asked another question. She says, I want to be able to release my dogs individually when they come in or out of the door, but as soon as I say free, they both go at the same time. So, for those, again, that haven't trained with us, free is commonly the word that we use to release a dog from a command. So what Wendy's talking about doing is she likes to make her dogs wait at the door so they're not rushing through the threshold. So it sounds like they're doing that well, but she wants to be able to have one at a time come through. Now, usually the simplest answer for that is to use their name. So if you go into our Facebook and you go back a little ways, you can actually find a video of me with about 12 or 15 dogs at the back door, and I'm releasing the dogs one by name. So a lot of times I will use their name as kind of like a backup free or a backup release, okay? So we'll tell the dogs to wait, and then I just call the dogs using their name one by one coming through. So that's the first thing to try. If that's not working too well for you, sometimes what you have to do is you got to kind of take a step back, put both the dogs on a leash, so that way you can do the whole name thing, but you have a quick way to correct the dog if they come and it's not their name. So Wendy, in your situation, Harley and Hazel. So if you say Harley and Hazel starts to take a step, you've got a leash on so you can give a quick correction, because it's going to be all about timing. You have to be really, really precise to make sure that the dogs aren't going to both be coming out at the same time, and so you can correct them. You've only got about 1.5 seconds to correct them fast enough. So you got to be pretty quick on correcting them and making sure that they understand what we asked them to do. So we put them on place, we make them wait, and then we call them by name. Harley, Hazel, and they come through one at a time just like that. So try using their name instead of free, and if that's not working, again, same thing. This is something we could probably do pretty easily in a lesson if you need help with it. The other option there is one of the things that we like to do is remember, dogs are so into body language. That's the most important part of communicating with dogs. So we try to make sure that we're directing our body language towards the dog that we want to come to us. So use your body language to send a little bit clearer message. And then last, if you want to, you can train different release cues. One of them could be released when you say free, and the other one be released when you say break, or whatever you want to use for a release cue. We've had people use break, at ease. Some people use okay. We're not a big fan of okay because it gets used too much in other speech. But anyway, yeah, you could come up with a different release cue for your dogs. So that way this one gets released on this word, this one gets released on that word. But again, easiest thing that you could probably do if you really just sat down and tried it for about 15 minutes is just stick with the names. get them to realize that they only get to go free when they hear their name at that point. So, good deal. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. That's 20 minutes. That's the time we set aside for this. We got to get back to doing some other projects around here. But thank you guys so much for joining in. We're glad we got a couple of live questions as well. Make sure you stay tuned for our next. We're going to do this. We're thinking at least every other week. We might go ahead and switch it to every week with how popular it's been. You can email your questions ahead of time, or when you see us start to pump up that we're going to be having this on Monday or Tuesday before a live video, you can submit your questions just in the comments right there, and we'll be sure to add them to the list. And if you don't do that, join us live, ask your questions like Deborah did today, and we'll be sure to answer them here live. So thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. It was a lot more fun having Andrea here, and so we really appreciate you guys being here with us, and we'll catch you guys next time.